asks to finish his training while he is still physically capable of working. The revelation changes the department's perspective. They realize his lies were a shield for his own mortality. Lucy and the sergeant decide to let him stay. Ridley remains on the force, fighting for a future he knows is limited. John Nolan returns to his hometown to bury his mother. He discovers boxes labeled defective containing shampoo laced with heroin. His mother scammed a local extremist militia, selling them the tainted product before her death. The militia group arrives at the house in a rusted pickup truck. Two men step out, armed, and demanding their money back. John attempts to de-escalate by showing his police badge, but the men are indifferent to the law. They want the cash his mother stole. The confrontation turns into a violent siege. The militia surrounds the wooden cabin and opens fire. High-caliber rounds tear through the walls and windows. John and Bailey are trapped inside, forced to crawl across the floor as debris rains down. They have limited ammunition against a superior force. One gunman breaks through the door. Bailey deploys a taser, sending a high-voltage electrical pulse through the man's body. His muscles seize, and he drops his weapon. John moves through the kitchen, using the narrow hallways to trap the remaining attackers. He returns fire, wounding the second gunman. A third man enters the living room, but Bailey neutralizes him with another taser strike. They maintain a defensive perimeter as the militia continues to spray the house with bullets. The sound of sirens eventually cuts through the gunfire. State police units arrive to find the three militia members incapacitated and bleeding on the floor. John and Bailey survive the ambush, leaving the hometown that nearly became their grave. Forensic experts find biological evidence from hundreds of different people at the crime scene. The killer collected medical waste from hospitals, including discarded bandages, and used latex gloves to saturate the bodies. This DNA buffet makes it impossible to isolate a single suspect. The killer deliberately used the biological history of strangers to create reasonable doubt for any future trial. The investigation narrows when police identify 4 specific syringes used on the victims. These are a rare trial design distributed only to St. Stephen Hospital. While searching the facility, officers find Ryan Dearborn, a psychiatric patient, wandering the basement with a medical bag. Ryan eventually confesses to the murders in an interrogation room, describing the pain he inflicted in detail. The legal team prepares to close the case, but the lead detectives look for a more capable coordinator. They identify Liam Glasser, a vending machine supplier who has serviced Los Angeles hospitals for 2 decades. Liam's replenishment route gives him unrestricted access to restricted areas and medical waste bins. He understands the hospital's internal logistics better than the security staff. Detective Nyla Harper confronts Liam at his service van. Liam attempts to use a friendly persona to deflect the pressure, even mentioning his marriage. Nyla remains unmoved. She identifies Liam as the primary manipulator who used Ryan as a scapegoat. She tells Liam that his days of moving in the shadows are over. She assigns patrol units to follow his vending route for every shift, ensuring he is never alone again. The encounter ends with Liam's smile disappearing as he realizes he is now the one being hunted. Angela Lopez enters the mansion of her enemy, Elijah Stone, under the cover of a signal jammer. The device severs all cellular and radio communication, leaving the crime boss isolated in his own living room. She stands before him, unarmed but in control. She states a single fact. She is pregnant, her priority is the safety of her family, and Elijah is the only tool she has left. She proposes a lethal trade. Their mutual enemy, the cartel assassin Abril Rodas, is currently hunting Elijah to seize his territory. Angela offers to hand over classified police intelligence and the coordinates of Abril's hidden location. She demands that Elijah use his own gunmen to execute the hit. While the deal unfolds, her husband Wesley lands in Guatemala. He distributes large sums of cash to local informants, securing the necessary leverage to keep the plan moving. Back in the city, Angela faces Elijah's skepticism with a cold, professional stare. She warns him that the clock is running out and the police task force is already mobilizing. Elijah weighs the risk against the threat of his own death. He chooses to survive. He orders a tactical team to recon the address Angela provided. He believes he is gaining an advantage, unaware that he is being steered into a collision course with a rival predator. Angela exits the mansion, having successfully manipulated 2 criminal empires into a war of mutual destruction. She has neutralized the threat to her child by forcing the monsters to devour one another. The police realize Jason never left Los Angeles. He paid a decoy to plant fingerprints in Detroit, but a signal trace on Bailey's phone confirms his actual coordinates. Jason intercepts Bailey and forces a high-speed pursuit that ends in a heavy collision. Both vehicles are totaled. Jason drags Bailey from the wreckage, attempting to hijack a van for a secondary escape. Bailey resists. She uses her training to injure Jason, stalling him until the sirens close in. Officers Nolan and Juarez arrive, pinning Jason in a narrow alley. The suspect is trapped, but the tactical situation shifts instantly. A hidden sniper named Malcolm Malvado, watches the scene through a high-powered thermal scope. He is not there to negotiate, he is there to eliminate. As Jason stands near the van, a suppressed round strikes his torso. A second shot follows with clinical precision, neutralizing the target permanently. Jason collapses and dies before the police can move in for an arrest. The officers scramble for cover, scanning the skyline for a threat they cannot locate. On a distant rooftop, Malvado remains calm. He disassembles his long-range rifle and stows the components into a specialized case. He changes into a maintenance uniform and walks past the responding police cruisers without drawing a single glance from the distracted authorities. He exits the perimeter as a ghost, leaving the police to secure a dead body in a crime scene they no longer control. The hunter was executed by a superior predator before the law could intervene. Wesley Evers introduces Charlie Bristow to his wife, Detective Angela Lopez. Charlie is the private security hired to protect their home from the drug lord Elijah Stone. Lopez is immediately defensive, but Charlie remains detached. She lists her credentials: 8 years in the British Special Air Service, followed by counter-terrorism tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. She has already coordinated with the LAPD units stationed outside the house. When Lopez mentions her own record as a 5-time police shooting champion, Charlie reveals she has already studied the detective's files. The professional suppression is immediate. While on patrol, Lopez's colleagues pull up Charlie's service record on a police terminal. The digital files confirm a history of high-risk operations and elite training. The officers are visibly impressed by the level of expertise now residing in Lopez's home. The tension grows as a veteran detective finds herself strategically outclassed by a private contractor in her own domain. The threat becomes tangible when a red, heart-shaped box is delivered to the front door. Charlie intercepts the package. There is no card, but the intent is unmistakable. Inside the box, withered roses are covered in crawling insects. It is a direct message from Elijah Stone. Lopez looks at the dead flowers and realizes her police badge cannot stop a cartel's reach. The professional rivalry ends. Charlie immediately takes command of the house, securing the perimeter. The reality of the danger forces the detective to yield her authority and accept the protection of the elite operative. Officers Nolan and Juarez intercept a blue van linked to an armed robbery. They order the driver, Mickey Barnes, to exit with his hands visible. Mickey stalls, cracking jokes and claiming he ran out of fuel. The distraction works. The van's rear doors swing open, and a massive man known as Hammer charges out. He overpowers both officers, slams them into the pavement, and speeds off in their own patrol car. The situation escalates at the scene. Sergeant Gray learns the full extent of the loss. The suspects didn't just take the vehicle, they now possess police-issued rifles, ammunition, a radio, and the onboard computer. The criminals are now mobile with full access to the LAPD's tactical database and real-time tracking. The pursuit leads to a safe house. Mickey and Hammer use the stolen police tech to locate Nolan. Inside the house, Mickey holds Nolan at gunpoint, but the partnership between the two thugs begins to fracture. Mickey wants to negotiate a new deal with his lawyer, while Hammer demands Nolan's weapon to finish the job. Nolan remains calm, exploiting the growing distrust between the two men. Mickey threatens to shoot Nolan if Hammer moves. Hammer ignores the threat, calling Mickey's bluff. The tension snaps into physical violence as the two criminals turn on each other. Hammer brutalizes Mickey for changing the plan, creating the opening the police need. In the chaos of their mutual betrayal, the officers move in. The thugs are disarmed and handcuffed. The stolen tech that gave them the upper hand ultimately led them into a trap of their own making. Detective Foster briefs the Los Angeles Police Department on a radical militia group called the Army of Freedom. He has been undercover for months, tracking their acquisition of lab equipment and industrial chemicals. The police initially prepare for a mobile meth lab raid. Officers Bradford and Chen breach a derelict warehouse and find a man dead on the floor, his face distorted by chemical burns and green foam. The reality shifts instantly. This is not a narcotics lab, but a production site for sarin gas. The police activate the Lacey system to sync cross-departmental intelligence and pinpoint the militia's fleet. They identify a truck carrying the nerve agent moving toward the city center. Command orders a full-court press. Units converge on Mission Road, establishing a heavy roadblock and donning gas masks. A drone hovers over the target vehicle, feeding live thermal data to the tactical teams. Sergeant Nolan uses the PA system to deliver a cold ultimatum. He informs the driver that the truck is surrounded by officers who will not hesitate to shoot. He makes it clear that releasing the gas or firing a weapon will result only in the driver's own death. Faced with a wall of high-caliber rifles and no exit strategy, the suspect's resolve breaks. He tosses his handgun out the window and surrenders. Officers move in, secure the canisters, and neutralize the threat. The operation ends with a silent, high-pressure arrest preventing a mass casualty event in the heart of the city. John Nolan walks through the precinct while fellow officers offer unsolicited advice on his failing marriage. They treat his domestic struggle like a locker room joke. A sergeant hands him a divorce lawyer's business card, insisting that every cop eventually faces a split. John remains silent, absorbing the insults disguised as sympathy. He does not correct them. He knows this is not a routine disagreement. Elsewhere, Bailey Noon sits in a hospital room with a woman she barely knows. She decides to stop lying. She reveals that her ex-husband, Jason, was a master of psychological control. She describes a gray area of abuse where there were no broken bones, only calculated isolation. Jason used a burner phone to stalk her, sending anonymous threats that left no digital trail. He exploited her fear to keep her trapped in a mental cage long after the marriage ended. Bailey admits she kept these secrets from John, fearing that the truth would break their new life together. Later that night, John enters their home. Bailey is waiting for him at the table. The tension is heavy, but she begins to speak. She confesses the full extent of Jason's harassment and the shadow he still casts over her. John does not interrupt. He listens as she explains how the burner phone was used to bypass her defenses. He realizes her distance was a survival tactic, not a lack of love. They reach across the table and lock hands. The secrets are gone. They commit to facing the trauma as a single unit. A containment failure at LAX triggers an immediate CDC alert. 3 travelers from Nigeria, exposed to the Ebola virus, have vanished into Los Angeles. Dr. Morgan confirms the threat is lethal. Officers Nolan and Juarez receive the briefing. They have 5 hours to locate the targets before symptoms manifest and the virus becomes contagious. The mission is to track them and move them to St. D. Stevens for mandatory quarantine. The second suspect, Kip, is located at a hospital where his girlfriend is in labor. Officers stop him in the lobby. He is informed he will miss the birth of his child. Hazmat teams in yellow suits seize his flowers and escort him to a secure unit. The third suspect, Robert Betts, is on a bus. Nolan orders the Department of Transportation to shut down bus service along Victory Boulevard. They spot the bus and pull the patrol car in front of it, forcing a halt. Nolan boards the vehicle wearing a face shield and gloves. He orders all passengers to remain in their seats. Robert is removed for questioning. He admits his nose has started running, signaling the onset of the virus. The risk level spikes. Every passenger on the bus is now a potential carrier. A panicked man attempts to flee through the back door. Officer Juarez deploys a taser, dropping him to the pavement. The hazmat unit arrives to establish a perimeter and transport the entire bus to the hospital for isolation. The scene is locked down. So a VARDA alarm triggers, bypassing the standard dispatch center. This silent sentinel sends a direct signal to every patrol unit in the immediate area to slash response times during violent incidents. On a nearby college campus, rookie officer Seth begins his first undercover operation. He uses a student contact to penetrate a local drug ring. The transaction is intended to be a simple buy and walk, but the dealer, Andy, changes the terms. He forces Seth and his contact into a vehicle, moving them toward a secondary location to meet a high-level supplier. Seth is now out of position. The police command center uses high-tech tracking to monitor the vehicle's movement through the city. Inside the car, the dealer grows suspicious. He prepares to conduct a full-body search to check for a wire. If the search occurs, Seth's identity is exposed. Every available unit converges on the highway. They coordinate a high-speed interception, boxing in the vehicle. Officers swarm the car with weapons drawn the moment the dealer reaches for Seth. The timing is precise. Seth is pulled from the vehicle and the suspects are detained. The rookie survives his first mission because the department's response time was shortened to seconds. The operation ends with the drug ring dismantled on the asphalt and the undercover officer safe. Drug lord Elijah Stone stands lawyer Monica Stevens in front of a running wood chipper. He demands one reason to let her live. Monica does not beg. She reminds him that she refused to flip even after the FBI raided his office. She proposes a deal. She will use her legal access to infiltrate the investigation against him, fueled by a shared desire for revenge against the LAPD. Elijah accepts. Monica returns to the district attorney's office barefoot, holding her broken heels to sell the story of her trauma. She claims she is ready to help the police trap him. A major drug deal is set at the shipping containers. Elijah arrives with $8 million in cash to exchange for 500 pounds of product. Monica watches a tracking app on her phone, telling Elijah she has eyes on every police unit's GPS. She signals that the coast is clear. Moments later, the police breach the yard from all sides. Gunfire breaks out between the containers. Elijah is tackled and handcuffed. He realizes Monica's intelligence was a trap. Later, Detective Nyla Harper confronts Monica with the truth. The police had planted a report full of false information for Monica to find. Every coordinate on her tracker was a decoy. With evidence of obstruction, conspiracy, and wire fraud, the police give her one choice. Monica becomes a long-term confidential informant. The elite lawyer is now a permanent asset for the police, forced to betray every client she represents. Officer Selena Juarez opens her sister's 5-year-old cold case file and finds a glaring contradiction. Her mother, Carla, always claimed she was home with a headache when Blanca was snatched from their yard. The official report suggests otherwise. Selena realizes her mother lied to the police and to her for over a decade. The police bring in a witness named Mr. Guzman. Under interrogation, Guzman's story about a chance meeting at a store falls apart. Nolan pressures him with the facts of the kidnapping. Guzman finally admits the truth. Both he and Carla were addicted to prescription opioids following past accidents. On the day Blanca disappeared, Carla was not home resting. She was meeting Guzman to buy drugs. She used Guzman to provide a false alibi to investigators, fearing child services would take Selena if they discovered her addiction. Selena waits for her mother at the station. When Carla arrives, she repeats the lie about the headache. Selena cuts her off and reveals she knows about the opioids. Carla's composure breaks in the station garage. She admits she left her children alone to get a fix. She confesses that Blanca's abduction happened because she was gone. The 5-year-old story of the grieving mother is replaced by the reality of an addict's negligence. Selena stands silent as her mother breaks down. The truth of Blanca's disappearance has permanently destroyed their relationship. Sergeant Gray hands Rookie Officer Ridley a yellow notepad and a pen. The order is absolute. Every time Gray looks at him, Ridley must have paper and pen ready. There is no room for memory. A massive wildfire rages across the hills, forcing the command center into a state of high-stakes coordination. Ridley is assigned to the phones, managing lines for FEMA, the National Weather Service, and the LAFD. The room is a wall of noise. Ridley balances multiple handsets, scribbling down fire directions, road closures, and water drop coordinates. The pressure is constant. The deputy mayor calls, interrupting the emergency flow with bureaucratic demands. While juggling 3 different conversations, Ridley disconnects her. The line goes dead. Sergeant Bradford watches from the side, but it is Gray who approaches. Gray asks if Ridley just hung up on the deputy mayor. Ridley tries to explain it as a mistake, a byproduct of the chaos. Gray cuts him off. He states he has no time for political games during a crisis. He tells Ridley to accidentally hang up as many times as it takes for her to get the message. The priority is the fire, not the politician. Ridley realizes his job isn't to be polite, it's to manage the disaster. He picks up the next ringing line and goes back to work. Officer Selena Juarez opens her sister's 5-year-old cold case file and finds a glaring contradiction. Her mother, Carla, always claimed she was home with a headache when Blanca was snatched from their yard. The official report suggests otherwise. Selena realizes her mother lied to the police and to her for over a decade. The police bring in a witness named Mr. Guzman. Under interrogation, Guzman's story about a chance meeting at a store falls apart. Nolan pressures him with the facts of the kidnapping. Guzman finally admits the truth. Both he and Carla were addicted to prescription opioids following past accidents. On the day Blanca disappeared, Carla was not home resting. She was meeting Guzman to buy drugs. She used Guzman to provide a false alibi to investigators, fearing child services would take Selena if they discovered her addiction. Selena waits for her mother at the station. When Carla arrives, she repeats the lie about the headache. Selena cuts her off and reveals she knows about the opioids. Carla's composure breaks in the station garage. She admits she left her children alone to get a fix. She confesses that Blanca's abduction happened because she was gone. The 5-year-old story of the grieving mother is replaced by the reality of an addict's negligence. Selena stands silent as her mother breaks down. The truth of Blanca's disappearance has permanently destroyed their relationship. Officers Nolan and Harper question young Theo at a temporary shelter. The boy leans in and shares a secret. His father owns a brown van. He insists this is a secret kept specifically from the police. Outside the room, a traffic camera alert contradicts the boy's story. Glasser is seen driving a green Jeep, not a van. The officers realize the extent of Glasser's manipulation. He spent years grooming his own son to deliver a pre-planned lie in the event of a manhunt. He used his child's innocence to create a false trail. Glasser's wife finally breaks under pressure. She provides the address of an isolated house registered under her mother's name. The police team arrives as a massive forest fire closes in, turning the sky orange and filling the air with ash. Inside the house, the smoke is so thick that flashlights barely cut through the darkness. Officer Penn searches the bathroom and finds a victim chained to a shower rod. facade. The man is alive, but bleeding from multiple wounds. Penn breaks the restraints and carries him toward the exit. In the living room, Glasser lunges from the shadows. He swings a baseball bat with lethal force, catching Nolan off guard. Furniture shatters as the two men grapple on the floor in the haze. Nolan loses his handgun during the struggle, forced to defend himself with bare hands against the attacker. Officers Harper and Lopez burst through the door, weapons drawn. They corner Glasser and force him to the ground. The handcuffs click into place. The police drag the killer out of the house just as the surrounding fire begins to consume the building. Tim and Lucy drive directly into a wall of fire on Eagle Rock Road. The road is blocked in both directions, trapping their patrol car on a narrow mountain pass. Tim identifies the vehicle as a bomb. The intensifying heat will ignite the gas tank. They abandon the car and grab a fire shelter from the trunk. They scramble to a clearing as the fire closes in from all sides. They deploy the foil-lined shelter and crawl inside, pressing their bodies against the dirt to find breathable air. The heat is immediate and suffocating. Inside the cramped space, Lucy breaks the silence. She tells Tim she knows he is still in love with her. Tim tries to deflect with technical facts about the shelter's heat resistance, but Lucy refuses to stop. She demands honesty before the fire reaches them. In the darkness of the shelter, Tim finally admits she is right. They lie still as the fire passes over them. Later, they sit in hospital beds, recovering from smoke inhalation. The adrenaline has faded, replaced by a new reality. Lucy tells Tim she plans to take the sergeant's exam. Tim realizes the implication immediately. If she passes, he will no longer be her supervisor. The professional chain of command that kept them apart is dissolving. They look at each other, acknowledging that their relationship has fundamentally shifted. The fire forced a confession that they can no longer take back. They are no longer just partners. The barrier between them is gone. Jake Butler walks out of prison after serving 6 months for drug charges. His girlfriend, Sava, waits at the gate with a getaway car. They celebrate his release with immediate public intimacy. At the LAPD, a documentary crew uncovers a disturbing fact. Jake and Sava are identical doubles of Sergeant Tim Bradford and Officer Lucy Chen. The precinct labels the criminals Dim and Juicy as a dark joke. These doppelgangers do not hide. They infiltrate. They target the ultra-wealthy, including celebrity Lance Bass, by posing as high-end domestic staff. Like the characters in the film Parasite, they move into mansions and occupy the lives of their employers. While the owners are away, Jake and Sava treat the luxury estates as personal playgrounds. They engage in sexual acts on every flat surface, from kitchen counters to diving boards, showing total contempt for the property. When they finally exit, they take hundreds of thousands of dollars in watches and jewelry with them. The police are powerless because the stolen goods are pawned immediately, leaving no physical evidence for charges. Sava uses the social media app ClipTalk to scout her next victims. She films herself at the Baudelaire estate, using the footage to identify security gaps and staff routines. They successfully replace the family's domestic workers, sliding into the household undetected. The doppelgangers have turned their resemblance to law enforcement into a weapon for high-stakes theft, living in plain sight within the city's most guarded homes. Officers Bradford and Chen engage in a high-speed pursuit of a suspect vehicle. The suspect swerves, striking a 70-year-old pedestrian before accelerating away. Bradford and Chen immediately abandon the chase. They find the victim on the pavement with a compound fracture and heavy arterial bleeding. Bradford demands a belt from a bystander and tightens it around the woman's leg as a makeshift tourniquet. He maintains pressure until paramedics arrive to transport her to the hospital. At the medical center, the victim enters hemorrhagic shock. A woman approaches the officers at the nurse's station, claiming to be the victim's only daughter. She enters the trauma room while the elderly woman is unconscious. Bradford and Chen witness her attempting to pry expensive rings from the victim's fingers. Moments later, the actual daughter arrives, exposing the first woman as a hired caregiver. The caregiver refuses to stop. She details 7 years of being hit, spat on, and verbally abused by the victim, arguing that the jewelry is her earned hazard pay. Chen informs her that these grievances do not authorize theft. The officers place her in handcuffs and lead her out of the hospital in front of the staff. Despite the arrest for robbery, the situation takes a final turn. The elderly woman survives and revises her will. She leaves her multi-million-dollar fortune to the caregiver, citing that her biological daughter was never present during her years of illness. The caregiver goes to jail for the theft, but she becomes a millionaire in the process. Jake enters a hallway in the Baudelaire mansion and vanishes. Surveillance cameras cover every exit, yet he never reappears. 4 hours later, Officer Thorson responds to a foul odor in a downtown alley. He lifts the lid of a dumpster and finds a man's body. The victim shares an uncanny physical resemblance to Sergeant Tim Bradford. For a moment, the department believes they have lost one of their own. The police return to the mansion with a search warrant. They find a second victim, a maid, dead in the conservatory. The property is protected by strict non-disclosure agreements used as a legal shield for unpermitted construction. Officers use thermal imaging to scan the walls. They find a structural anomaly behind a massive bookshelf. A hidden switch opens the wall to reveal a secret vault. Inside, the team finds millions in stolen assets, including a lost Picasso and Stalin's Bible. At the back of the vault, they discover a concealed hatch. It connects to a subterranean tunnel leading directly to a hidden grate in the perimeter bushes. This is how the suspect moved. Jake did not disappear. He stepped into a private transit system. The